That's how visitors describe Washington, D.C., capital of the United States. There's dignity, distinction, and beauty everywhere in the District of Columbia, designed from the beginning with the definite purpose of being a capital city. Washington National Airport, just 10 minutes from the capital's business section on U.S. Highway 1, has the distinction of being the only commercial airport owned by the United States government. Through its recently enlarged and redesigned terminal building, some of the most important people in the world. Prime ministers, potentates, and just plain people, thousands of them every day, deplane at Washington National Airport. Most of the visitors, like this Midwestern schoolteacher, are here to see the impressive machinery of government in action and to enjoy the magnificent buildings, monuments, and parks which have no equal in the world. Knowing that history is more easily learned when the places where it was made are seen at first hand, Laura brought her young brother Billy along on their Easter holiday. There are many ways to see the District of Columbia and the historic countryside surrounding it, and a convenient rental car appeals to Laura and Billy as the most practical and comfortable way of all. First stop for Laura and Billy will be the beautiful Washington Statler Hotel, where they have reservations for their stay. The imposing 14-story building is located on 16th Street, just a few blocks from the White House and only minutes from the airport and railroad or bus terminals. The President of the United States attends functions in the presidential ballroom here as often as 20 times a year. The Statler's convenient motor ramp makes it possible for arriving guests like Laura and Billy to drive right up to the entrance to a special lobby. Then the car will be parked for them by hotel attendants. The tall marble shaft of the Washington Monument caught Billy's eye while their plane was circling the airport. Towering 555 feet into the sky from its central location on the mall, it's a landmark that can easily be seen from any part of the District of Columbia. The monument, erected at a cost of $1,187,000, was opened to the public in 1888. Its masonry and stone walls, 18 inches thick, react so slowly to outside temperature changes that condensation sometimes actually causes rain to fall inside the shaft. Viewed from any angle, the Washington Monument makes a beautiful picture. Housed in 10 different bureaus of the Smithsonian Institution are exhibits tracing the development of the United States as a nation. The Smithsonian is a history book come to life, and what a place it is to capture the imagination of a small boy. Inside the National Air Museum, one of the Smithsonian's treasure houses of American history, Billy is able to visualize the flight of the Wright brothers' airplane at Kitty Hawk as he inspects the original plane on public exhibition here. Another famous airplane in the Smithsonian collection is Lindbergh's Spirit of St. Louis, in which the Lone Eagle became the first to link America with Europe by air, spanning the Atlantic in the frail monoplane back in 1927. Better than any history book, the sight of the small plane in the museum gives life to the epic flight, making Lindy's adventure something that is happening right now through the eyes of a young museum visitor. The flag that inspired Francis Scott Key to compose the Star-Spangled Banner is on display at the Smithsonian, too. It's the same tattered ensign which flew over the ramparts of Fort McHenry during the British bombardment of Baltimore, while Key watched as a prisoner aboard a British man-of-war. Approaching the Capitol building by way of one of the broad parkways which lead to Capitol Hill is a memorable experience for both Laura and Billy. The great dome of the Capitol looms up before them like a symbol of freedom and democracy, as indeed it has since its completion in 1863. Perhaps the best-known address in the country is number 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, the official residence of the President of the United States. Designed in 1792, the White House is the oldest public structure in the federal city, and it has been the home of presidents since John Adams in 1800. More than 1 million visitors pass through the White House each year during the hours it is open from 10 a.m. to noon on all days except Sundays, Mondays, and holidays. The Red Room, used for receptions preceding small dinners, is one of those open to the public. The Blue Room, considered by most people to be one of the most beautiful in the White House is the President's own reception room. The United States Marine Corps War Memorial is one of many impressive monuments seen by Laura and Billy in their tour of Washington. It depicts the historic flag raising on Mount Suribachi, Iwo Jima, during the Second World War. Another memorial, this one dedicated to all American soldiers and sailors who lost their lives in the service of their country, is the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier in Arlington National Cemetery. It bears the simple inscription, "Here rests in honored glory an American soldier, known but to God." A lone sentry stands guard night and day before the tomb, in which rests the body of an unidentified soldier brought from France after the First World War. The tomb itself is cut from a single rectangular block of white marble erected in 1931. An interesting ceremony to watch is the hourly changing of the guard. The Vermont marble exterior of the Thomas Jefferson Memorial glistens in the afternoon sunlight as Laura and Billy continue their tour of the District of Columbia. The beautiful $3 million memorial to the third President of the United States consists of a single impressive room containing the mementos of Thomas Jefferson. Every year at Easter time, banks of the tidal basin in West Potomac Park erupt into waves of color as the pink blossoms of Washington's famous cherry trees come into full bloom. The exotic trees, which blossom for several days but bear no fruit, were presented to the United States as a gift from the city of Tokyo in 1912. Highlights of the annual Cherry Blossom Festival in Washington include a cherry blossom ball and the crowning of a cherry blossom queen. Their first stop, just 15 miles south of Washington on the Virginia side of the Potomac, is Mount Vernon, the home of George and Martha Washington. The entrance to the estate is always thronged with visitors. Completely restored by the Mount Vernon Ladies Association, the stately old mansion contains the original equipment, furniture, books, paintings, and accessories of Washington's day. Even the spacious grounds are landscaped in accordance with Washington's own records and notations to his estate manager. The house, located on a high promontory overlooking the Potomac, afforded Washington a serene retreat during his long periods of service to his country in times of war and peace. After Washington's death in 1799, he was buried in this tomb on the grounds, and when Martha Washington died in 1802, she was buried beside him. The vault is visited by thousands every year. Gunston Hall is graceful from the outside, but neither large nor imposing. The brick mid-Georgian building was erected by George Mason, Washington's friend and revolutionary compatriot, between 1755 and 1758. The interior of Gunston Hall is one of the most impressive found in any home of the colonial era. It isn't difficult for a boy like Billy walking through the mansion to people its rooms with the figures who once occupied them. George Mason was the author of the Fairfax Resolves, the first Constitution of Virginia, and of the Virginia Declaration of Rights, which served as the model for the first 10 amendments to the federal Constitution, the Bill of Rights. Thomas Jefferson, who was a frequent visitor at Gunston Hall, called Mason the wisest man of his generation. The east door of Gunston Hall opens onto a 12-foot-high boxwood alley planted by George Mason, one of the famous sights of Virginia. And on either side and below the 250-foot avenue of boxwood are elaborate 18th century gardens restored by the Garden Club of Virginia. The trip continues with new sights and experiences for Laura and Billy at every turn of the road. Through Fredericksburg, one of Virginia's oldest and most historic cities, they drive on to Charlottesville and nearby Monticello, the home of Thomas Jefferson. Monticello, designed by Jefferson himself, is one of the classic examples of American architecture. Richmond, capital of Virginia and the old capital of the Confederacy, holds many places of interest for the travelers. Then it's on to historic Williamsburg, where the entire colonial area of the city has been restored to its 18th century appearance. The governor's palace, residence of the royal governors, and one of the most elegant mansions in colonial America, is staffed with guides wearing authentic costumes. Laura and Billy are both fascinated by colonial Williamsburg, which is the site of the greatest restoration project ever undertaken in the history of the world. A powder magazine and guardhouse built in Williamsburg in 1716 was the storehouse of arms and ammunition for the Virginia colony. Authentic arms, some from the Tower of London, and colonial implements of warfare are on display here. Laura and Billy have found their visit to the nation's capital, coupled with the tour of Virginia's outstanding places of interest, to be a rewarding experience, as you have seen on Guided Tour.